With this lab, we will be wrapping up our 3-exercise series on collecting digital evidence. In this exercise, you're going to use a .dd file that we created together at the very beginning of scenario 2. The difference with this lab is that we're going to use a different tool to analyze that digital replica. So I have already launched my command line interface in the distribution of Linux that I have. That is Linux Mint. And if you have Linux Mint as well, you can see the terminal icon at the bottom of the display screen. If you're using another distribution, there will be similar icons to launch the command line interface, or as you can see, sometimes called the terminal. Once in the CLI, we can look at our home directory by issuing the ls command, and we can see that that file that we created, go.dd, exists in that directory. That is the file that contains the bit-by-bit copy of the USB stick that I was handed by my virtual forensic department supervisor, and this happens to be a 2 gigabyte USB. So let's move on. We are going to enter exactly as we see in the instructions a command sequence. It's a little bit complicated looking, and that's why we're going to be careful to enter it exactly as we see it. I'll try to make a little bit more room there. So we're using a tool called Foremost, and -T space -lowercase t, and then we have some file type descriptors that are comma separated, and they represent file types of the Adobe Acrobat portable document format, an image format, JPG, OLE, and a PNG image file. Then I have a space, a dash, a lowercase I, another space, and then the name of that digital replica file. Let's consult the instructions and make sure that everything looks exactly as indicated. And now we will go back and hit the Enter key. The file begins to process, and we'll see some indication of activity continuing. And while we're waiting for that, we'll take a look at the next page of the instructions. So we're going to wait until the command line prompt returns, and then we will use that Linux listing command to look at the results. So it is your job at this point to examine what changed as a result of the foremost command. While you're examining, I will launch the graphical file navigator, which is the icon here that when I hover over it, it says Files. And we are in the home directory for my logged in user account. And we should see the same file names and folders that exist in the command line interface. So we can move around a little bit and give you a chance to do some comparisons between what you see as a result of the ls command and what you see here in the graphical interface. And we are particularly looking for a folder that starts with the word output, and we are going to double click on that folder. And there are some additional folders within this folder structure, and it does indeed seem to be very similar to what is presented to us in the instruction document. We're going to double click the audit.txt file to open it in whatever default text editor launches and figure out from that information how many documents that this tool foremost has recovered. So I will move me out of the way so that you can do some examination. Also, I will explore the other two folders created by double-clicking each of their icons, just like we would do in Windows. And then there are some things to consider. We are to consider the results from that examination, as it compares to the tool that was used in the very first lab that you can go back and look at using the PhotoRec tool. And you are to think about what is the same, what is different, and do you have any opinions or conclusions about the effectiveness or ineffectiveness of each tool? Also think about the question, if you were in a forensic investigation lab. Would you find it to be a good idea? Would it be prudent to use more than one extraction tool on a digital replica? And why did you choose that answer? And just for additional enrichment, I suggest that you explore the Formas tool either through web research, or there is a man page, so you can use man space foremost as long as you install that tool on your system. So let's look at this one last time. And then take a look at the JPG directory. And the PDF directory. So think about what you're seeing in each of these cases, how that compares to what you saw with PhotoRec, what those differences might mean, and any other conclusions you may have. Just for grins and giggles, I'm going to open up the Firefox web browser. And with that web browser open, I'm going to navigate to Google, but not just the Google text search engine. I'm going to go to Google Images. And I'm going to use this little camera icon to search by image, because I find it interesting that there may be in my home directory and that output directory and the image directory, there was a file of this fine woman that I don't quite recognize from prior extraction. Let's see what Google can find about that image. And so some searches came back, and gee, here's some that look exactly the same. So we could actually visit one of these links and just find out who this person may be, and possibly why this image came back with the extraction from foremost. And, you know, you maybe give that a little bit of thinking and maybe come up with a conclusion of your own. So again, look at these final questions, study what happened in the course of our exercise, review the other two labs, and have fun with data extraction.